All right, let's try that again. And this time I'm not stopping. So we're streaming to everybody right now. This is the Dean Legge Show here on Dog Post, presented by Bank South and Bank South Mortgage. We appreciate Bank South really helping us this season. It's been a good season here on Dog Post for sure, and I appreciate all of our subscribers. So stick in there with us if you're on YouTube watching or Facebook or wherever, Twitter. I see everyone on Twitter. Bad news on Twitter is I can't seem to get the software to properly work. So we're going to do our best to get all the information to you. Georgia is suffering a really significant loss to LSU on Saturday. Really, two things stood out to me on the day, which were that, number one, the offense went away from the run far too fast. They really were churning up yards in a big way that I think that if they had just stuck with the run for longer, they would have had more success. And far be it for me to be the arbiter of, understanding everything about football, but I can understand when you're getting, 10 yards a carry, or not 10 yards, but 6.5 yards a carry for sure. So that was not good. As it relates to Jake Fromm, he didn't play well. This is probably the worst game that he's played so far at Georgia, and I think it leads to concern for sure. I'm not personally ready to jump into the replace him with Justin Fields stuff, but I do think Justin should play a lot more, and I think no matter who the quarterback is, they should perform when they're in there. And that's not something we saw this week. I mean, Jake Fromm did not play well. I see people say it's not all Jake Fromm's fault. Of course not. But it is his fault when he doesn't hit open receivers in the end zone. So I'll leave it there. They got to score when you can. And that didn't happen for Georgia. They should have had a lead going into the second quarter, and they were losing 3-0. So that's just not acceptable. It's not good enough. And there's good news only that the season is not terminated. But certainly if you lose to Florida, which is not at all out of the realm of possibility, your season's over then. And then what will happen is all the snarky folks nationally will question everything about what's gone on in this program the last 18 months or however long it's been. And, then you'll have time for reassessment. The long-term trajectory of the program at Georgia, there's really just not much to worry about on that front. But the Florida game obviously should be taken abnormally seriously. It probably will decide who wins the East. Although Florida is actually in third place right now. They do not control their own destiny. Kentucky and Georgia both control their own destiny, but the Gators do not. And Florida has had an up-and-down season, but they've only lost once. I think a lot of people, including me, thought they'd lose to LSU. They did not. But it's a home game and all this stuff. I mean, if you look at the Gators' season, a lot of it will depend on how well Felipe Franks plays. Is he steady? Does he make plays? Does he freak out? Stuff like that. I think for Franks, he is capable to beat Georgia for sure. But I think that he's not a weapon in the way that you'd like to have a weapon at quarterback. And Georgia's struggling with that right now, too. I mean, Jake Fromm, for all of his attributes, is not someone people are getting scared of. And that's the bad news, okay, is that you need your quarterback not just to be a signal caller or a game manager. You need him to be a playmaker. And I've seen Jake Fromm make plays. It's just that that's not his number one thing. So, I don't know. I love the comments. There's not been a positive one yet. So, let's get back into reality. Georgia will probably be about a touchdown favorite over the Gators. Here are the Bank South keys to the game. Whether you're buying a home for the first time, building your dream home, or finally have that man cave to watch, or finally moving up to a man cage. Typically, the man caves can be downstairs, but they don't have to be. Bank South can help you out with that. You need a lender that can get you across the goal line into the closing table. Bank South Mortgage makes your part of getting a home loan easy with their Ready Loan mobile app. All you got to do is download the app, and you can do the vast majority of the banking on your phone. Think about that. Download the Ready Loan app from the App Store or Google Play. Now, Ready Loan is READYLOAN, just like it should be. Yes, man cage. Now, a man cage is different than a man cave. Let me get through this spot, and I'll explain the difference. Download the Ready Loan app from the App Store or Google Play Store, Google Play Store today to get started on your loan application and let the experienced team at Bank South Mortgage help guide you home. Bank South Mortgage is an equal housing lender, NMLS number 690971. The difference between a man cave and a man cage is a man cage is when your buddy is driving you nuts and it's time to get into the squared circle and handle him. All right, you see the season is on the line here. Bank South keys to the game. Number one, the season's on the line. I think I've said it like 6 times here. Number 2, run the damn ball. Number 3, the quarterbacks have got to perform. They really do. And I think that number 2 will help take care of number 3 and number 1. If you effectively run the football, you will be in good shape. I expect basically the same thing out of the Gators that we saw from LSU, which is a physical front and a defense that has DBs. You know, these guys are not losers at all. They can really play. Defensively, Florida is carried by, their team is carried by their defense. The offense has struggled at times. But what I think Dan Mullen and crew, having not watched every single one of their games, my suspicion from the beginning of the season to now is they just decided to basically get as physical as possible and run the ball the entire time. That works. And in this league, if you are the more physical team, you typically win. So that's what we'll see on a couple of Saturdays. We've got some time still. So the Bank South keys to the game. Number 1, the season's on the line. So there's got to be a lot of urgency. Tonight, Kirby talked about the urgency in the game for the Bulldogs. The urgency in practice for the Bulldogs tonight. It was Tuesday night. I'm getting the days mixed up since this travel. And, I was hoping to be able to run this on all the categories all the platforms that I send things out on, but I really can't because I cannot get Twitter integrated, and I'll just be sitting here for a minute while Kirby talks, and y'all won't be able to see anything, so it's a little stupid to do that, so I'll skip that this week. But the game, obviously, this is the most important game of the season. This team, Georgia, should win the East. They should beat Florida. They're better than Florida. They were better than LSU going in that game, and they lost. So we've not seen 2 losses in a row for Georgia as a as a favorite since 2015, and that was when they were a 1-point favorite over Alabama and a 1-point favorite over Tennessee. We've not seen back-to-back losses of Georgia being a touchdown or so favorite since 2013. That was when they were a 7-point favorite against Missouri at home and lost, and then went on the road to Vanderbilt and lost. So when you lose back-to-back games is when you really know you're in trouble. I'll tell you this. If Georgia were to lose to Florida, it would be time to start talking about changes, generally speaking. I don't think you have to blow up, obviously you're not blowing up the program, that would be insane. But you would need to take a look at what you're doing offensively if you're losing like that. Let's just see what happens before we pronounce all sorts of things. I'm not ready to switch quarterbacks. I mean, the thing about that whole discussion is that we only see what we see, and we can't know what we don't know. And people like me see about as much of the program as anybody. And Kirby and them see, 95% more than we see? So it's just one of those things where obviously you'd like to see more production from the quarterback spot. You'd like to see the type of play that Georgia had against Vanderbilt. But when you lose, there's nothing people can say or do. Folks get so frustrated, and I understand it. But, Jake Fromm has been a stand-up guy virtually the entire time he's been at Georgia. Kirby's been through this sort of thing before, last year, and frankly the year before that, in terms of quarterbacks. But I'll tell you this, Jake Fromm is not a certain starter the rest of his time at Georgia, just the way that Jacob Eason wasn't, and just the way that no one is or was. So I just think that we're concentrating so much on that because it did hurt Georgia at the end of the day for Fromm to play as poorly as he did. But he didn't stop calling the run plays. He didn't call the fake field goal, which was there, and it just didn't work out. There's a lot of things that did not happen the way that you'd like it to on Saturday, but they didn't get out physicaled. They just missed the plays that were there, particularly in the first quarter. And once you get down 2 scores, it's just so tough. Georgia should beat Florida. They're going to be about a 7.5-point favorite. Maybe the thing gets up to 8. Maybe it drops down to 5. I don't know. But they should win the game. They're better than Florida. And the typical panic that sets in after a loss is not so different than the jubilation after a so-called big win. So this program has been here before. And it is all on the line this coming weekend, 2 weekends, 10 days from now. Here's several questions about Jamari and Trey Hill. Look, they're going to play. I don't think they've not played. They're just not the best 5. So, I guess what I would say is I thought the offensive line played pretty well on Saturday. And I think that the run game proved it. The sack numbers in the first half proved it. And, it ain't the offensive line. So the group of 5 they have in there right now is doing the job. Everybody, these Twitter comments are insane half the time. The offensive line is working. It's functionally very good. Replacing starters on the offensive line that are not, being replaced by Ben Cleveland makes no sense. Get a hold of yourselves a little bit here. You lose one game and everybody is going into a straight up panic. I don't know. Stop it. It's out of control. So I think the thing about it is you got to hit a ball. The first pass of the game that Jake threw was a very good one. I mean, Nana made a play, and then there were 2 drop passes right after that. But, it's not been the same as it was last year in the passing games. You're missing Wims, it feels like. But there's very good receivers on this team. It's just not, generally speaking, clicked yet. But I do think it will click eventually. I just don't know that it's going to be pretty all the time. I mean, in 2003, Georgia got to the championship game with an anemic offense. I mean, a really bad offensive line that gave up more than 40 sacks and a dominant defense. Every year is different, but this feels a little bit like that year. You go to LSU and lose. You still look like the best team in the East. We'll see. It's hard to imagine them losing to Florida and getting to Atlanta. Is that Florida still has to deal with Missouri and South Carolina. They could lose those games. I kind of doubt it. But the season completely takes care of itself if you win the next 2 games. Everything's in front of you completely. And, lean on your strengths. Lean on your offensive line. Don't ask Jake Fromm to do too much because that's when he doesn't play well, it seems like to me. I mean, last year against Florida and Tennessee, I don't even think he had 20 passes combined, and they just rolled through those 2 teams. So I think this is about getting Fromm comfortable again, reigniting a run game that looks like it can be dominant with this offensive line and these backs, and just forgetting what happened in Baton Rouge. I mean, sometimes you do get killed in this league. If you don't think so, I mean, unless your name is Alabama, if you don't think so, just go back and look at the last 10 games of every single team that's played, no matter if you're talking about Auburn, Georgia, I mean, LSU, whoever. I mean, LSU lost to Troy last year at home. So, you know, sometimes you don't play well and you lose. You deserve to lose. LSU deserved to win. Georgia deserved to lose. That's it. I know that everyone is in a panic. That's fine. You're not playing on Saturdays, so you can kind of do whatever. It's good. But I like Georgia's chances. I just don't like them as much as I did before the LSU game, naturally, because I think if Florida seems to be surging at least a little bit to me, but, you know, when you get down there, you don't ever know what will happen with games. Number 8, Georgia taking on number 11, Florida. Those numbers could change a little bit coming in. It's a 3:30 kickoff in Jacksonville, and the gates will open at 1:30, I believe. So, you know, it's Georgia's going to be the home team this year. That means they're on the west side of the stadium. I view that as the easier side to get to from where I park, which is right by the river. And the river is not ideal, let me tell you. But anyway, you know, it's always an exciting game. It's a big deal game for sure. And there's a lot to be excited about. That you lost by 3 scores on the road when you did not play well. Really, you got to let it go. Fans are going to be fans, short for fanatic. But, you know, Alabama's gotten their ass whipped a couple times in the last 10 years. Yeah, you're forgetting some games there on Facebook. Or, what is that, Twitter? You're forgetting a few games. That's all right. I know that they are beyond approach. No one can dare touch Alabama, and that's fine. But everyone's human. Everyone can lose, and including mighty Alabama. Although they got beat pretty good by Oklahoma. They got beat by South Carolina. I think what Auburn did to them last year was pretty solid beating. You know, but if you want Alabama love, God bless you. Good for you. I'm just calling it like I see it. It's good for you. I don't know. I'm not going to continue to talk to you. I have a lot of people watching this show. You can go look it up. I think, though, if you're Georgia, you focus on the run game, get that going, and then it should, from there, it should take care of itself. I mean, this offense has racked up a lot of yards this season. It's racked up a lot of points. This is the lowest scoring game Georgia's had offensively this year. I mean, generally speaking, and this is, you know, without the offense really clicking completely, it feels like they have still scored 45, 41, 49, 43, 38, 41, and then 16. So they went up against the best defense they've seen so far. Maybe the best defense they'll see this season. I don't know. But, you know, whenever you play Florida, LSU, Auburn, Bama, people like that, they've got players, and, you know, that you're going to have to deal with some things. But it would not surprise me to see Georgia get a solid win over Florida. We're just going to have to see. There's nothing guaranteed anymore. And like I've been saying, the entire season's on the line in Jacksonville, like every year, except last year, basically. I mean, you know, you look at from the last, you know, 2008, 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, and maybe 16, but definitely 15. You know, if you know that game has determined who was going to win the league, the one that win the East. Obviously, in 8, it was the Gators. In 11, 12, it was Georgia. 13, it would have been Georgia had they not tripped up against Missouri. Actually, it should have been South Carolina in 13. So that Florida-Georgia didn't matter in any way in terms of the East, but 14 did. You win that game, and you go on and you win the division. 15, amazingly, was for the division. So it's just, it's a critical game. More often than not, the last 20, how many years have we been in this thing now? 26 years in divisions. More often than not, it has decided who is going to win the division, and it's a fun game for sure. A lot of partying, but it's a very serious game now. I mean, and Georgia needs to be ready to play, ready to fight, not figuratively like it seemed like the Gators were this past weekend, but they need to be ready to play. Dean, would you be shocked if Fields started against Florida? Yes. I would be floored. That is not going to happen. That would be bizarre, frankly. I don't know why you would do that. Some of the stuff you read is similar to what you read after Auburn last year. And when you think about what Georgia accomplished last year after getting absolutely floored by Auburn, and frankly, they played a little better against LSU this year than they did against Auburn last year. It's just, I don't know. It's funny to see sometimes. I feel bad for some folks because they are just going crazy. Jake Camarda has got to play better. He's got to punt better. He's got to play better. If you read the boards, it's do or die to play him. Not really on Dog Post. Maybe you should come over to Dog Post. I mean, there are plenty of people. Everybody wants a quick solution. After you lose, everybody wants to play on Sunday, which I get, but it doesn't work that way. You have to go back and earn the win over this 13-day period before you play the Gators. I mean, they came out and had a good practice tonight. If you want to read about practice, there's a free report on Dog Post, dawgpost.com right now. You can read our premium report, which has more details and so forth. But Kirby said tonight that Georgia had a good practice and guys were ready to get back out there. So they got to practice on Wednesday and Thursday, he indicated. They'll be off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then they will hit it hard probably on Monday. Although I think today was probably a pretty rough practice if I had to guess. I mean, you've got a long time. DeAndre Swift doesn't even go today. You got a long time between practices, between when they play, so you can really get physical with it. But it's time to play big boy football. This is certainly a huge game for everyone. It's the Gators too now. I mean, there's a lot of more optimism after they beat LSU. I mean, Florida has had again a better season than I think most people thought. The East has just plain been better than most people thought. But when you look at the 53 points against Charleston Southern, that's a ton. Obviously, the bad loss, what seemed like a really bad loss to Kentucky at the time, 27-16. They beat Colorado State's brains in, but a lot of that was not with the offense, 48-10. And then the 6 or 5 turnovers against Tennessee, 47-21. The offense really struggled against Mississippi State, 13-6, but they won. And then they put together 27-19 win at home against LSU. They did not look good against Vanderbilt, but they won by 10, so 37-27. A little bit with Florida, you do wonder which team will show up. With Georgia, it's not a matter of which team will show up. It's a matter of will they hit the balls they need to hit, or will they get away from the run game too fast. This team has been pretty steady. I mean, I find it hard to really be, really angry with the way the defense played this past week. I thought the defense, I thought they did about all they could do. Frankly, kept Georgia in the game the bulk of the time. I mean, I'd have to go back. I mean, this is final numbers, so it's not ideal. But, in the last 7 minutes of the game, and this totally counts, let me tell you, LSU scored 10 points. So they scored 17 in the fourth to really just push the game completely out of control. They were only going into there. They were up. They were up 10, and Georgia knocking on the door. So I thought the defense did about all it could do. I mean, it forced 4 field goals, I think it was. Yeah, I mean, through the third quarter, they had forced 4 field goals from LSU, and it was 13-9. If your offense has any production, you should be okay in a game where, midway through the third, or actually going into the fourth, the other team has 19 points. So that's not on the defense. That's on the offense. And as we know, and as I've, said many times, they did not play well offensively. But if you look at Florida's defense, they've not given up. I don't think they've given up 30 yet. So, 6, 27, 10, 21, 6, 19, 27. That they're doing fine on defense over there. Y'all can make fun of Todd Grantham all you want to, but they are doing just fine defensively. And this is not a great Florida team. This is an okay team, a team though that can beat Georgia, and that the Dogs better watch out for. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. I appreciate everybody joining me on iTunes, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and we're on Dog Post. Go visit Dog Post right now, dawgpost.com. Thanks everyone for joining.